Stage 14 of a marathon 1,500 kilometer stage from Tikit to Kifa, and Fabrizio Mioni, the leader in the motorcycle race so far, running into trouble. We'll tell you more about that in the program, but let's give you detail about our competition coming up as well, and it is a fine competition. Well, the car section has also had its ups and downs, but all South African eyes will be watching Alfie Cox very closely. And if you're an Alfie Cox fan, tonight's program on the Dakar Rally, the 14th stage, will be a good one not to miss.
Day 14 of the Dakar, and Nani Roma is out whilst challenging for the lead. Hiroshi Masuoka was going every which way, but at times forward in the car section. And you come to the desert and it rains. Well, in the past 24, 36 hours, we have had 4 seasons altogether. We've had scorching sunshine, we've had wet rain, we've had cold conditions, boiling hot conditions, as well as a sandstorm in the bivouac yesterday when we were based at Tikit. Deep in the centre of Mauritania, the conditions have not been kind for many. In the dry conditions, though, with this truck, they of course have to find their way through the stage without getting stuck in the sand. So they say 3 kilos or 2 kilos of pressure in the tires, and they can, remember, deflate the tires from inside the cab. They do not have to stop and get out and press the valve. They can decrease the pressure in the tires and therefore put a greater footprint of tire on top of the sand and therefore increase their grip. And you can see the punishment that the driver and co-drivers have to go through. This was the scene at Tikit yesterday at the bivouac. Very, very windy, winds of up to 40 miles an hour. And the wind was not helping Miran Stanovic. His bike was going up in flames.
I stopped, and from carburetor, I don't know what happened exactly. I put it down the air filter and tried to start again, and then from airbox came the fire, and for a few seconds everything was on fire, you know.
And even the Lockheed Hercules, which houses our TV editing suite, had to be moved at ease to aid its starting process this morning. One of the trucks was roped in, literally. It was a day of drama for everyone. So then, today's stage from Tikit down to Kifa, the first part of our second marathon stage on the Dakar 2002. 467 kilometers. The Dakar may be 3 days from home, but it's certainly not over yet. And with those weather conditions, anything can happen. And indeed, everything can happen. The organisers playing cat and mouse with the competitors and introducing a secret control point on the stage. And Hubert Auriol saying, well, the CP is... He says there was not a cake to be cut today. Some people weren't at the briefing last night, and they will miss this CP. They will therefore get an hour's penalty, and some others will have to turn back to come here. then I think we will have some changes in the overall ranking this evening. Well, this was the scene at the bivouac this morning. Nanni Roma and Fabrizio Mioni taking breakfast together. That was before dawn, but into the daylight, and Nanni Roma, who was in second position overall by 3 minutes and 3 seconds to Fabrizio Mioni, was out for the win. It was a difficult stage today, but unfortunately Roma took a wrong turning, as did many throughout today's 467-kilometre stage, and he went up a cul-de-sac. He essentially went up a complete dead end, and the Spaniard, realising his mistake, was beginning to panic. You can see the riding was getting scruffy. It was getting out of shape and out of hand, and you can see the incredibly difficult conditions in which he was tackling with. He was not only upset in his own mind, he was cold. The rain was lashing against his face and against his goggles, and the riding was getting more and more out of hand. And even to an untrained eye, you can see the conditions nigh on impossible for Roma, the Spaniard grappling with what he had left of the Dakar in his hands. The desperation continued. He went up the hill, he went down the hill. He tried to go one way, then the other. And eventually he found a way out, but would it be enough? By now he was in a real state of flux. And though that 3-minute lead of Mioni was certainly going away, but then it went away forever. Poor Nanni Roma had completely lost control. He got into a state of hyperventilating, and he essentially just had a panic attack. The medical crews were with him soon. He returned to the bivouac, and I'm glad to report that he is okay. So then, Fabrizio Mioni, the leader overall going into the day, and by now, unbeknown to him, of course, continuing to lead the Dakar. But as you can see, even he was getting lost. So, with Mioni getting lost and Roma out of the rally, he had nothing to lose, but he asked the local which way was best to get over a particular escarpment, and unbeknown to that local, he may have just won. Fabrizio Mioni, his second Dakar in a row. Who knows? He was not without incident himself, though. That's a big bike, that V-twin KTM, and the 44-year-old lucky to keep control. With the sand getting wet, it may be a bonus that there's not as much dust today, but those rocks are just like ice. Richard Sank, second on the stage today, some 2 minutes and 45 seconds back of Mioni. Alfie Cox, he said that the bike was an absolute pig to control with its full fuel tanks. Everybody getting lost. And Esteve Puyol coming in behind Cox, some 40 minutes back of Mioni, the winner of the stage. Cox, some 29 minutes back of Mioni. Pierre Quinareno, remember that the Frenchman, he won the opening stage of the Dakar all the way back on the 28th of December in La Souterraine. The 6 kilometers of mud for him then, very different from today. Eric Bernard continuing to keep inside the top 10. He finished 6th today, whilst Anders Ullevasta from Norway, he was 7th today. Carlo de Gavardo from Chile, he was so tired and so much in pain after yesterday's stage, he decided not to go to the briefing last night. He missed the secret control points and he's taken a massive penalty. Giovanni Sala, he also missed that secret control point and he's taken another 2-hour penalty. He's well down the order. Mioni winning a stage from Sankt, Cox, Esteve Puyol and Quinarano today. Nani Roma back in the bivouac. He said, I was cool this morning and when I left the start, and I think since the start of the race I've had a good rally. This is my first mistake on the entire Dakar this year and I pay for it in a terrible way. All that I know is that when I saw that I couldn't get through the end of the pass, I felt as if there was a lot of pressure upon me. I got very nervous and after that I just don't remember.
Pero creo que después de haberme perdido, pues sí que me he puesto muy nervioso buscando la pista, no encontraba para subir y ha sido cuando me he perdido, bueno, que me ha pasado esto, o sea que...
Però pensavo che ne fosse arrivati altri.
It was a very, very difficult stage. We couldn't see anything because of the rain. The stage was extremely slippery and the tracks on the ruts in the road were very, very hard. Riding in these conditions is just very, very difficult. I'm happy about my result today and we are just one step closer towards Dakar.
Tomorrow is just the 70 kilometers. Very slow all the way down to the finish, and there's no strategy after that.
Do you know that Digavardo missed CP?
You missed one CP?
Yes, first one.
Oh, shit. Okay. So then I'm okay.
So you are okay.
I'm second overall then.
Are you glad now?
Yeah, look, I was a bit worried, eh? When we got to the refuel, I was 15 minutes behind. 17 minutes, and I thought, oh, you know, it's not a problem because I think I have 40 minutes lead on the fourth man, which is Digavardo. But if he missed a CP today...
There was a secret CP?
Yeah, there was one secret CP.
In the overall ranking, after the top factory riders, there are the rest. And one of those is Eric Bernard. He's knocking on the door to all the pros. He says he's had the best rally for a very long time. The top riders have been taking more and more risks, and we've seen the different accidents that have befallen them since the beginning. Their speed has been a lot higher, and before we saw people like Stefan Pederhansel, who was alone ahead, and now there are 6, 7, 8 riders who are all fighting very close. So what is the difference between the top pros and the rest? Well, Anders Ullevasta saying the speed we have to normally ride an enduro at is some 100 kilometers an hour, whereas here it's about 160. My problem is navigation. However, the link between these riders and the Dakar is their competitiveness in their home Enduro Championships. And here's Eric Verhoff from Holland. He says, it's a hard fight. We have to work very, very hard in the evening on the bikes. And therefore, it gives us no time for rest. The only thing that makes the difference between us and the Works KTM riders, because the bikes are the same, is that they have time to recover. Well, they're all on the Dakar to make an impression upon the team managers. Pierre Quinarano, he won the opening stage and he has certainly made his mark this year. And so has Paulo Marques from Portugal.
Mas com dinheiro, com uma estrutura mais pesada ainda, talvez consiga fazer melhor.
He says, if I have good results here, maybe KTM will give me a better bike for the Tunisia rally. And then, for example, I might be able to get into the top 5.
E se tiver a oportunidade de poder dispor de motor de 700 cm3, como já disse, bastante mais performante, então seria o ideal.
So, keep an eye on these riders, particularly considering as though they are young. So, at the start this morning, Gregoire de Mavius, not soon after I left him, after he was complaining over stomach trouble, says, on board here, says, we've got no fuel. I've just realised that we've got no fuel in the tank, so we're going to have to return to the bivouac. And obviously this is very bad, big mistake, but people are getting very, very tired. And you can see the despair in Gregoire's eyes. So then, as some of the trucks are already leaving the bivouac, Gregoire de Mavius returns to the Nissan de Sud squad, beeping the horn, trying to get their attention. Remember that they're packing up the trucks and they're not expecting Gregoire to be returning. And Alain, his co-driver, saying, we've got no fuel, got no fuel. But one of the mechanics leaning over, looking into the fuel tank, and he says that there is fuel. So, once they realise that they do have fuel, it can only be a problem with the fuel gauge. It's not unknown for fuel gauges to be stuck on 0. So Gregoire says, okay, we go. Now then, this is Carlos Souza, who eventually got through the stage in 5th position, but not without incident. As you can see, completely stuck at right angles to the edge of this dry lake bed. And how did he get there? Just how did he get there? The tracks are across at 90 degrees to the edge of the lake bed, and yet Souza is at 180 degrees to it. He says, well, we arrived square to the step, but at the last moment we saw that it was too steep and too big for us, so we turned at 90 degrees, and now we're stuck. And of course the rain has softened it all, it's collapsed the wall, and that has meant that we have got stuck. Now this is Gregoire de Mavius arriving to exactly the same point, throws the anchor out the back, realising that he could be in the same amount of trouble, and he only just got away with it. And this is Luc Alphonse, only a matter of minutes later, doing exactly the same thing, but a little slower, and finesse nearly getting the better of the step, but in the end it didn't win. Luc Alphonse eventually finishing in 6th position on the stage today. Remember that there's no overall because it's the first part of a marathon stage. Now here is the overall leader of the Dakar in the car section, Hiroshi Mashioka. He took a wrong turning for some 10 kilometers or so, as you can see, of many of the motorcyclists, and they look in total disbelief as they cannot believe that the overall leader of the car section has also made the same mistake. So he's gone 10 kilometers one way, 6 miles, and then he goes 6 miles in reverse. And like bees round a honeypot, the rest of the lost motorcycle riders decide to follow Hiroshi Mashioka. But Mashioka's teammates, Jean-Pierre Fontenay, has also made the same mistake. So once more, for the second time in 24 hours, the two Mitsubishis are very, very close together on the stage. You'll remember the action from yesterday when Fontenay actually hit the stricken Mashioka Mitsubishi when it was stuck in the sands. Very, very muddy conditions for everybody out there on the stage. As you can see, it's like, at times, the Safari Rally in the rainy season. Now, this is Kenjiro Shinazuka. He's done 17 Dakar rallies, and he's never seen a day with as much rain and as much mud in Africa. He had 2 punctures, one of which was a slow puncture and cost him a lot of time. Shinazuka second on the stage today, but the winner of the stage through the wet conditions was Germany's Jutta Kleinschmidt. She had 2 punctures, one of which was a slow puncture, but she used the air inflation system to keep it up because she wasn't far away from the finish. On board with Jutta, she says, we've got a problem with the steam coming up on the inside of the windscreen because we had the system there for Europe, but of course we took it off. We're just not prepared for Africa. The sand, though, is very heavy for us today. And your car is very difficult to go through it. You've always got to keep the revs up to keep the wheels spinning. I've got to catch up Shinozuka. He's 13 seconds in front of me. He started 2 minutes behind us, so we've just got to try and overtake him. Maximum attack. So, Jutta Kleinschmidt winning the stage today, even with that slow puncture. 17 minutes ahead of Shinozuka. Fontenay was third. So drama for everybody. Jutta Kleinschmidt getting away with it the best in 5 hours and 50 minutes. Shinozuka still got that stiff neck in second. Fontenay third, Masuoka fourth.
Wow, das war heute eine tolle Speziale für uns.
I had a slow puncture during maybe 200 kilometers, but we didn't stop. We inflated the tyre with the desert system that we have, and after that we then had a real puncture some 10 kilometers from the finish, but it was okay between then and the finish. I just didn't want Shinozuka to catch me.
Die zwei vor uns müssen sich verfahren haben. Kenshiro war richtig, der war gut, den haben wir überholt, als er Blattfuß hatte. Also war eine klasse Speziale für uns und zum Schluss haben wir jetzt hier zwar auch einen Blattfuß, aber mit dem können wir noch ins Ziel fahren.
Yes, not so difficult, but at the beginning it was very bumpy, no good for me, it's very pain here and here. But after that it's okay, but unfortunately we got two-time puncher.
Donc c'est vrai qu'on perd 33 minutes qui sont pas dues à
co-driver for Masuoka saying yes, we made a mistake and we lost maybe 33 minutes.
C'est beaucoup,
but it was my mistake.
On reste leader du classement général
and
pour 19 minutes. Donc
33 minutes is important, but it's not so bad. The Dakar has a new car this year, as you saw at the start of the rally when the Seat Cordoba Hybrid won the stages at La Souterraine and at Madrid. Now that Seat have pulled out of the WRC, Benoit Berger has designed the car, but he is busy back at base, leaving Carl de Montserrat to oversee the very, very well thought out car. He says the car is based on a WRC spec Safari car, but we wanted to put in a diesel engine and bigger wheels to be competitive in rally raids, so we've totally rebuilt the car from scratch.
Y unas ruedas grandes para poder competir en rally raid. Finalmente, pues la pelota se ha ido haciendo grande y se han hecho muchas modificaciones y es un verdadero coche de rally raid.
Winning those 2 stages in Europe was a perfect record that started off the Seat's Dakar experience with this new car. The torque of the engine and the Pirelli mud tyres proving that their choice was head and shoulders above the rest. However, once into Africa, it struggled a little, but it's still doing well. Carl's saying that Seat could decide what to do with this car after the Dakar, but it depends on the overall result that we obtain by the time we get to the finish. The car's specially being commissioned from Spanish sponsors Repsol and Telefonica, no strangers to top-level motorsport. So with the coverage they have received this year, it was a wise commercial decision from all parties.
300 metros, un agujero de 2 señales.
Carls is always around the car, making notes for what he will hope will be an even better car in years and rallies to come.
esto es un pequeño blog donde hay todo el listado de modificaciones.
Says, I note in my book everything that we have to do or that we have done on the car. All the modifications we have made are in here.
Después de hablar con el piloto cuando llega de la etapa, que es las modificaciones para la próxima etapa.
So then, Sayat winning a couple of stages in the Dakar 2002. Let's hope that they win many more in years to come. Well, tomorrow's stage is actually tonight as the crews leave Kiffa at 10 o'clock to drive a massive 1,011 kilometres, that's 635 miles, to Dakar. En route, though, they'll have to do a 165-kilometre stage, just finishing before the border, which then takes them into Senegal itself. The stage is over sand for the first half, and then a considerable amount of vegetation for the second half before they eventually get to Dakar. Just 2 more stages to go, and then it's the finish.